Today, we will discuss a terrifying true story that raises serious questions about the justice system. In December 2023, Nashville Metro Police arrested 22-year-old Bryson Rivers on charges of aggravated kidnapping and assault against his girlfriend, Lauren Johansson. The case was filed by Lauren's father, Lance Johansson, who claimed that Bryson had held his daughter hostage and brutally beaten her during their vacation in Tennessee. During the trial, Lance warned the judge that if Bryson was ever released, he would kill his daughter, and tragically, that's exactly what happened. After spending just 7 months in jail, Bryson was released on bond, and soon after, Lauren was found dead. This raises several questions. How was a violent offender granted bail? Why wasn't he being monitored by authorities? And how did he manage to get close to Lauren again? Lauren Johansson was born on October 30th, 2001, in Ocean Springs, Mississippi. She was the eldest of 4 children of Lance and Tamala Johansson. Both of her parents worked in the medical field, inspiring Lauren to pursue a career in nursing. She was an excellent student and actively participated in social work, such as volunteering at animal shelters. During high school, Lauren began dating Bryson Rivers, a star football player. Their relationship lasted for 5 years, but from the very beginning, it was marked by toxicity and abuse. Bryson was controlling and possessive, wanting Lauren to be completely isolated from her friends and family. He had severe anger issues and frequent emotional outbursts, blaming Lauren for his instability and manipulating her into believing that his well-being was her responsibility. No matter how abusive he became, Lauren always forgave him and returned to the relationship. In 2023, Lauren enrolled at the University of Southern Mississippi to study nursing. There, she met Nick Bell, a 24-year-old Army aviation veteran who was also studying nursing. Unlike Bryson, Nick was caring and protective, and Lauren gradually confided in him about Bryson's abusive behavior. One day, after returning from a trip, Lauren asked Nick to check her house to ensure it was safe. Shockingly, Nick found Bryson hiding under Lauren's bed. Not only that, but Bryson had nailed all the doors shut to prevent her from leaving. Though he left that night, his stalking and obsession with Lauren didn't stop. Over time, Lauren and Nick's bond deepened, and in August 2023, Nick proposed to Lauren during a vacation in Miami. She said yes, and it seemed like she had finally escaped Bryson's control. But fate had other plans. In December 2023, Lauren reconnected with Bryson and agreed to go on a trip with him to Tennessee. One night at a local bar, Bryson accused Lauren of cheating on him with a bartender. Enraged, he forcibly dragged her into his car, drove to a deserted parking lot, and viciously beat her. He struck her with rocks, choked her, and threatened that if she tried to escape or call for help, she wouldn't wake up the next morning. He even claimed that he had scheduled marriage counseling and was furious that she had betrayed him. Lauren continuously denied his accusations, but Bryson was consumed with rage. When the police arrived, they found the car's windows fogged up. Lauren was inside, banging on the passenger window for help. Officers discovered her covered in blood, barely conscious. She was rushed to the hospital, while Bryson acted as if nothing had happened. Even as he was being arrested, he calmly asked the officers why he was being taken into custody, despite knowing very well what he had done. Bryson was charged with aggravated kidnapping, aggravated stalking, and witness coercion. However, just a few days later, Lauren accepted a phone call from him in jail. Once again, he manipulated her, convincing her that he had changed and was planning to join the military to work on his anger issues. Though she initially wanted to drop the charges, the police informed her that they had enough evidence to proceed without her cooperation. Still, despite the overwhelming evidence against him, Bryson was released on bond after just 7 months. In June 2024, after his release, Bryson went straight to Lauren. The authorities had failed to monitor him or provide Lauren with any protection. As a result, the worst happened: Bryson killed Lauren. This tragic case leaves many unanswered questions. Why was a known abuser released on bail? Why wasn't Lauren given proper protection? And why does the legal system continue to fail victims of domestic violence? This story highlights the devastating consequences of a broken justice system and the urgent need for better laws to protect victims. What do you think? Did the justice system fail Lauren? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Lauren tried to stay away from her toxic boyfriend, but every time she did, Bryson found a way to manipulate her and re-enter her life. On Monday, December 18, 2023, a preliminary hearing set Bryson's bond at $251,000. Lauren's father, Lance Johansson, was present at the hearing and warned the judge that if Bryson was ever released, he would likely kill his daughter. He explained that this wasn't the first time Bryson had physically assaulted Lauren, and while the family had managed to separate them several times, Bryson always found a way to return and abuse her again. On March 13, 2024, Bryson Rivers filed a motion in Nashville court requesting a bond reduction. Despite strong opposition from the Nashville District Attorney's Office, Judge Cheryl Blackburn approved the request and reduced Bryson's bond from $251,000 to $150,000 on April 3, 2024. What made this decision even more shocking was that the judge had reviewed an 11-minute audio recording from December 2023 in which Bryson could be heard viciously beating Lauren. The police also informed the court that Lauren had changed her statement after speaking with Bryson over the phone. In her new statement, Lauren claimed that Bryson had not assaulted her and that the blood on her body was due to her accidentally hitting herself against the car windows. She even stated that she was the one who had tried to harm Bryson. Despite the overwhelming evidence against him, the judge granted Bryson a bond reduction. However, certain conditions were attached to his release. He was not allowed to leave Davidson County, Tennessee, and he was required to wear a GPS monitor. The court order also specified that Bryson should be released before 4 p.m. to ensure he had enough time to get to the GPS tracker company's office and be fitted with the device. On May 15, 2024, Bryson and his mother filed a motion to modify the conditions of his release so that he could live with his family in Mississippi while awaiting trial. The judge denied this request, but on June 4, 2024, a company named Elite Bonding was approved by the court to post Bryson's bond. However, the company's owner ultimately decided not to move forward with the case, citing concerns about how Bryson would live without his family's support. On the same day, Bryson's assigned parole officer sent a copy of the court order to Tracking Solutions, the company responsible for his GPS monitoring. Bryson's lawyer then requested that an email be sent to the district attorney's office to verify the appropriate exclusion zones for his GPS restrictions. An address was provided to the court, but despite these conditions, Bryson was still able to gain access to Lauren, leading to the tragic events that followed. Bryson's attorney informed the court about where he would be living while awaiting trial. The court approved two different bond companies, On Time Bail Bonding and Brooks Bail Bonding, to post Bryson's bail, with each company putting up $75,000. Both companies were required to appear in court and sign the order detailing Bryson Rivers' bail conditions, which was a 2-page document specifying the payment amounts and terms. The first page of the order stated that Tracking Solutions, the GPS monitoring company, would fit Bryson with a GPS monitor. However, an employee from Brooks Bonding was only shown the second page of the order and was unaware that Bryson was required to be taken to Tracking Solutions for GPS monitoring. After all legal formalities were completed, Bryson Rivers was released from the Maximum Correctional Center on Harding Place on Monday, June 24, 2024. Despite one of the bail conditions stating that he should be released before 4 p.m., he was released at 4:05 p.m. Additionally, the Office of Davidson County Chief Deputy Criminal Court Clerk Julius Sloss made a mistake in sharing information regarding Bryson's release conditions. The bonding company was not fully informed because the clerk's office failed to provide the complete documentation. When questioned, the chief deputy clerk later stated that it was the responsibility of the bonding company to be aware of the terms before signing, and the clerk's office was not obligated to ensure they read the documents thoroughly. Under normal circumstances, Bryson should have been released into the custody of a bonding agent, but due to miscommunication and missing information, he was released on his own. However, this was not the only mistake made by the authorities that day. When a bonding agent later picked up Bryson Rivers, instead of taking him to Tracking Solutions for his GPS fitting, they mistakenly took him to another GPS monitoring company. This company, Freedom Monitoring Services, had only been established 7 days before Bryson's release, and was unaware of his full release conditions. As a result, they did not know that Bryson was prohibited from leaving Davidson County. By the time they realized this, several days had already passed, and Bryson had already left Tennessee. Freedom Monitoring Services did ask Bryson about his location in Mississippi, where he claimed he would be staying, but they were unaware that the address he provided was actually Lauren Johansson's. Bryson remained in Mississippi for 5 days before returning to Tennessee on June 29, 2024, after being told there was an issue with his GPS monitor that required him to report to the company's office in Nashville. However, he did not stay in Nashville long and disappeared again. Bryson had a hearing scheduled in Davidson County Court on July 2, 2024, but he never appeared. Around this time, the battery on his GPS tracker began to die, and the last recorded location was in Biloxi, Mississippi. When Freedom Monitoring Services contacted Bryson's mother to ask about his whereabouts, she claimed she had not seen him and did not know where he was. Despite multiple attempts by the authorities, GPS tracking company, and bond agents, no one could reach Bryson Rivers. Given the evidence that he had violated his bond conditions by traveling to Mississippi, the court issued an arrest warrant for him. On June 28, 2024, Lauren's father, Lance Johansson, received a voicemail from the Nashville District Attorney's Office, informing him that Bryson Rivers had been released and advising him to ensure his daughter's safety. The message stated, "This is Bailey calling from the District Attorney's Office in Nashville. Bryson Rivers was released from custody. He was supposed to report straight to the GPS company and be put on a GPS monitor, and he was not to leave Davidson County. But as soon as he was released, he did not report to the GPS monitoring company and has not been heard from. I wanted to make sure Lauren is safe." Lance did not hear the voicemail until July 1st. As soon as he became aware of the situation, he texted Lauren to check on her well-being. Although he received a response, he later revealed that the text did not sound like his daughter, and something felt off. The entire situation was shocking to Lance because he had been assured that Bryson would not be released and that Lauren was safe. Additionally, when Bryson was released, Lance was not informed for nearly a week. To ensure their daughter's safety, Lance and his wife, Tamala, had all family members install the Life 360 app, which allowed them to track each other's locations. On July 2, 2024, at 4 a.m., Lance received a notification on his phone that Lauren's Life 360 app had been turned off. At the time of the incident, Lauren was living with her sister in Hattiesburg. When Lauren's sister woke up in the morning, she found that Lauren was missing, the front door was open, and the house's security camera had been torn off. Realizing his daughter was missing, Lance Johansson immediately contacted the Hattiesburg Police Department and reported the situation. When Lance Johansson went to the police station for an update on his missing daughter, he was shocked to find that the authorities had done nothing to track Lauren. Despite the urgency of the situation, law enforcement kept delaying any real action. It wasn't until 3 p.m. on Wednesday, July 3rd, that the police finally took a step forward, after Lance insisted they locate Lauren's car. Using OnStar, a vehicle safety tracking system, they were able to ping Lauren's car in the Gulfport area of Harrison County, about 90 minutes away from where she had been living. Authorities quickly informed Lance about the location, and without wasting any time, he drove to the scene himself. On July 3, 2024, police discovered Lauren Johansson's car abandoned in Wolf River Cemetery. Inside the back seat of the vehicle, they found Lauren's lifeless body. The sight was horrifying. Not only had she been brutally murdered, but her body was wrapped in sheets and trash bags. It was immediately clear that she had been beaten to death. Her face was so severely smashed that it was unrecognizable, and her eyes were swollen shut, meaning she had likely been blind at the time of her death. Her head bore multiple holes, and the extent of her injuries indicated she had been subjected to extreme violence. The attack was so vicious that her skull had separated from the rest of her body due to the repeated blows to her head. As law enforcement arrived at the scene, a male figure suddenly bolted from the vehicle and ran into the nearby woods. The police immediately launched a massive manhunt, deploying over 50 officers, drones, K-9 units, a helicopter, and other search methods to track him down. After more than 6 hours, authorities finally captured Bryson Rivers. To lure him out of hiding, law enforcement used text messages, pretending to be a friend who was offering to help him escape. Believing the deception, Bryson walked straight into a trap. The moment he reached the prearranged meeting spot, expecting to be rescued, he was swiftly arrested by police. Bryson Rivers was informed by his bond company that he had violated the terms of his bond and was instructed to return to Nashville, or his bond would be revoked. He returned the call around midnight, but made it clear that he wasn't going to show up for his hearing, and indeed he didn't. Later, new evidence revealed that Lauren Johansson was murdered by Bryson Rivers in Forest County, not Harrison County, where she had been living when she was killed. As a result, Bryson was transferred to the Forest County Police Department. Bryson made his first court appearance on July 26, 2024 in Forest County, where new charges were added, including first-degree murder, tampering with evidence, and grand larceny. Prosecutors claimed Lauren was killed near her residence in Forest County, and her body was moved to Harrison County. His bond was initially set at $1 million, and he faced a preliminary trial on July 31, 2024, at Gulfport Justice Court. As the investigation continued, a key update revealed security footage showing that Bryson and Lauren had voluntarily visited a hotel together. Furthermore, phone records showed that Bryson attempted to contact Lauren 126 times between July 1st and 2nd. On July 2nd, Bryson sent a message asking a friend to drive him to Hattiesburg. Security footage also caught him near Lauren's home that morning, and it was revealed that Lauren had installed 11 cameras for security, but 5 were missing when she went missing. Footage from the cameras showed Bryson leaving the house at 5:11 a.m., returning a few moments later, and leaving again without his shirt. Lauren's car left her house at 5:51 a.m., and GPS data indicated Bryson drove in circles around Hattiesburg without following direct routes. He drove to several parks and stayed at Petal River Park for 32 minutes. By October 9, 2024, a judge panel concluded that although the bond companies had not broken any laws, there were multiple cases of negligence, and these oversights contributed to the tragic death of Lauren Johansson. Bryson remains in custody as a grand jury continues to review his case. Search for Denise continued. Aaron, Denise's boyfriend, was interviewed by detectives and FBI agents in an undisclosed location. During their interrogation, Aaron provided crucial details about the events leading up to and following the abduction. He and Denise were woken up in the middle of the night by a bright beam of light shining in their face. The light was followed by a vibra noise that Aaron attributed to a stun gun. Aaron claimed that he heard a male voice demanding they lie face down on the bed. As he and Denise complied, Aaron explained to the detectives that the intruder blindfolded him using swim goggles, but they had been blacked out with dark tape, making it impossible to see anything. The male intruder then instructed Denise to bind Aaron's wrists with zip ties. The intruder placed Aaron in a closet and covered his ears with headphones, playing a pre-recorded message before calming music. This message instructed Aaron to follow specific instructions and warned him not to interfere with the abductor plans. During the message, the voice said that both occupants needed to comply or would be hurt by an electric shock or cuts to their faces. Before leaving, the intruder obtained Aaron's financial account information and passwords. Aaron later recounted to the detectives that the intruder placed him on the couch and told him that the professional group was monitoring him via webcam. After being left alone, Aaron said he passed out on the sofa, but eventually woke up. Aaron immediately realized that the intruder had stolen his laptop car, and most importantly, Denise. Panic began to set in as Aaron realized that she was missing. He checked his phone and discovered a chilling voicemail from the kidnapper demanding money in return for her safe return. The intruder threatened Aaron, warning him to tell anyone who asked that he wanted the money to purchase a ski, but a search for Denise began immediately. Officers with the Vallejo Police Department launched a massive investigation. The spokesperson for the DEP department revealed that the detectives were treating the case as a kidnapping for ransom. As the investigation continued, the detectives involved in the case began to question certain aspects of Aaron's story, such as the details of the intruder's actions, the pre-recorded message, and the delay in reporting Denise missing. The detectives believed that Aaron's account of the incident seemed too elaborate and wondered whether he had played a role in Denise's disappearance. Aaron's mother, who spoke to Dateline, revealed that the detectives treated her son more like a suspect than a victim. They polygraphed him 5 times, placed him in a prison jumpsuit, and provided minimal food and water as they held him for hours in the interrogation room. These tactics were perceived as an attempt to coerce a confession rather than a determined effort to locate Denise. Despite Aaron's claims that an intruder had abducted Denise, the lack of evidence and discrepancies in his story led the detectives to consider alternative possibilities. They believed that Aaron might have harmed Denise and then concocted the story of the intruder to cover his tracks. However, without concrete evidence, they were unable to prove this theory definitively. Just over 30 hours after Denise vanished, reporter Henry Lee received an email with an audio file attached. This file, claiming to be a proof of life message from Denise, sparked a media frenzy and left investigators with questions. When Henry Lee opened the audio file and heard a female voice, it was undeniably Denise's. In the recording, Denise spoke about the day's biggest news: a German airliner had crashed in the Alps, resulting in the loss of 150 lives. Denise also mentioned her first concert where she watched. Denise Huskins was abducted, and a recording surfaced of her seemingly confirming her survival. The recording included mentions of current events and personal details, which suggested she was aware of her surroundings and able to communicate. However, reporter Henry Lee became suspicious when he noticed that Denise's voice lacked the fear or distress typically associated with someone in such a situation. Instead, her tone was calm, almost casual, as if speaking to a friend. This raised doubts that the recording might have been staged or altered. Despite the message suggesting she was alive, Denise's friends and family remained uncertain about the situation. They were especially worried after hearing her calm tone in the recording. When interviewed by Dateline, Denise's friends mentioned that her composure was nothing new. In fact, during the 2013 Boston Marathon bombing, Denise had remained calm and helped herself and her friends to safety. Around 45 hours after Denise was reported missing, the Vallejo Police Department announced that she had been found in Huntington Beach, California, about 400 miles south of Vallejo. Kendra Hatcher was born in a small town outside of Chicago, Illinois, and from a young age, she was known for her nurturing and caring nature. Her parents instilled in her the importance of helping others, which led her to pursue a career in podiatric dentistry. Kendra found great fulfillment working with children, and by 2015, she had landed her dream job at a dental practice in Dallas, Texas, focusing on a low-income community. Her ability to connect with patients made her a popular figure at the practice. Kendra was also an eligible bachelorette, and she quickly caught the eye of Dr. Ricardo "Ricky" Panaga, a dermatology resident from California. Their connection grew quickly, and after only 4 months of dating, they began discussing moving in together and planning their wedding. Life seemed to be on an upward trend for Kendra. In September 2015, she and Ricky had planned a romantic getaway to Cancun, but fate would have other plans. On September 2nd, 2015, while Kendra was driving home from her receptionist job at a local hospital, she was texting Ricky, who was waiting for her at her apartment. They were eagerly discussing their upcoming trip when Kendra became the victim of a tragic event. Hashim, a young man who lived in the same apartment complex as Kendra, was walking to his car when he heard a commotion coming from the parking garage. As he and his friend paused, they were startled by loud screams followed by a series of popping noises resembling gunshots. In that moment, a black Jeep Cherokee sped past them, and Hashim and his friend decided to follow the vehicle. When they reached the street, Hashim noticed a body lying next to a white Toyota Camry. He immediately pulled over and called 911, reporting that he had seen a woman lying on the ground, bleeding from her neck. Officers and paramedics arrived on the scene to find Kendra already deceased. After confirming her identity using her vehicle registration, they learned that the victim was Dr. Kendra Hatcher. Ricky, who had been anxiously texting and calling Kendra without any response, became increasingly worried. One of the homicide detectives approached him, and after confirming his identity, Ricky was informed that Kendra had tragically passed away. Ricky's reaction initially seemed genuine, but due to his presence at the scene and his relationship with the victim, police began to investigate further. Following Kendra Hatcher's murder, investigators felt compelled to look into Ricky's involvement. He was brought in for questioning, but despite his emotional reaction and presence at the scene, there was no concrete evidence tying him to the crime. After a lengthy interview, the detectives released him due to lack of proof. Crime scene investigators, however, uncovered crucial evidence. Kendra had been shot in the upper part of the back of her head, and the bullet had exited through her chin, indicating the shooter had likely been standing over her during the attack. Gunshot residue on Kendra's hands suggested her hands had been positioned behind her head at the time. Investigators also found a shell casing from a .40 caliber weapon and a magazine from a handgun, which they believed had accidentally been released in a moment of haste. Unfortunately, the magazine did not contain any prints or DNA that could identify the shooter. Most notably, Kendra's purse was missing, leading detectives to suspect a robbery had gone wrong. They reviewed security footage from the parking garage, which revealed a black Jeep Cherokee that followed a resident into the garage at 7:15 p.m. The vehicle later reversed, and the suspect entered the passenger side before speeding out of the garage. The footage was too grainy to identify the suspect or the vehicle's license plate, but one detective noticed the woman driver exiting the garage and released a still image to the public. 2 days after Kendra's death, a man named Jose Ortiz contacted the police, stating that the black Jeep was his. He recognized the vehicle's distinctive features but denied any involvement in the crime. Jose revealed that he had loaned the Jeep to his friend, Brenda Delgado, who was with him at a restaurant at the time of the murder. However, when confronted about the vehicle's involvement in the crime, Brenda allegedly threatened him, warning him not to get the police involved. Brenda even offered to pay for the Jeep to be painted to avoid recognition. Detectives were increasingly suspicious of Brenda and began digging into her background. Brenda, who had immigrated to Dallas from Mexico as a child, was a 33-year-old dental hygiene student. Those who knew her described her as quiet and reserved, though they acknowledged her upbeat energy. When questioned, Brenda denied knowing Kendra and maintained that she had been at dinner with her boyfriend, Jose, on the night of the murder. The detectives were now convinced that Brenda Delgado may hold vital information about the murder of Kendra Hatcher. Brenda Delgado's story began to unravel during her interrogation. She provided a receipt from Chili's as proof of her alibi, but the detectives found it suspicious that she had a receipt from 2 nights earlier readily available. When asked why her name had come up as a potential suspect, Brenda claimed that her friend Crystal Cortez had borrowed the Jeep, not her. Brenda provided Crystal's contact information for the detectives to interview her. Crystal Cortez was soon brought in for questioning, and her story further complicated the investigation. Crystal admitted to driving the black Jeep Cherokee seen in the CCTV footage at the time of Kendra's murder. She claimed that she and her son were on their way to the park when a man jumped into the back seat of the Jeep, pulled out a gun, and pointed it at her. Fearing for her and her son's safety, Crystal complied with the man's demands to drive. They ended up in the parking garage, where Crystal said she witnessed the man shoot Kendra after she had parked and the white car had driven by. However, the CCTV footage contradicted Crystal's account. It showed her driving the Jeep into the parking garage, but no child was in the vehicle with her at the time. This raised doubts about her entire story. When pressed for further details, Crystal claimed she had been forced to drive to the apartment complex at gunpoint, but the detectives questioned why she didn't try to escape or seek help during the ordeal. The evidence from the CCTV footage, which showed Crystal waiting for the man to return to the Jeep after the shooting, led the detectives to conclude that her story was false. Faced with mounting evidence, Crystal eventually confessed that the attack on Kendra had been planned, but she insisted that she didn't know the man had a gun. She claimed that the intention had only been to rob Kendra, not to harm her. When Kendra resisted giving up her bag, an altercation ensued, leading to Kendra being shot. Afterward, the man returned to the Jeep and warned Crystal not to tell anyone, or he would kill her. Crystal also revealed that Brenda had come up with the idea for the robbery. Crystal further disclosed that Brenda and Kendra were both interested in the same man, a revelation that raised suspicions about the motivation behind the murder. The detectives soon learned that Brenda had been in a relationship with Ricky for 2.5 years, but they had broken up in June 2014. Despite their breakup, they had attempted to rekindle their relationship later that year, only to break up again in February 2015. Just weeks after this final breakup, Ricky met Kendra, and their relationship quickly blossomed, with Ricky updating his Facebook profile picture to include Kendra. This sudden change in Ricky's relationship status alarmed Brenda, who reportedly felt threatened by Kendra and Ricky's growing connection. Crystal claimed that Brenda had approached her with an offer to commit the robbery on Kendra, suggesting a deep-seated jealousy and motive for the crime. The detectives now had a clearer understanding of the complex relationships and motives that led to Kendra Hatcher's tragic murder. The investigation was shifting toward uncovering how Brenda's emotions and her past with Ricky had played a pivotal role in the plot to murder Kendra. Brenda Delgado maintained her innocence during the investigation, insisting that she had no involvement in Kendra's murder despite mounting evidence against her. She had allegedly promised Crystal $500 to help steal Kendra's purse, but Crystal insisted that their intent was merely to rob Kendra, not to kill her. The detectives, suspicious of Crystal's claims, decided to confront Brenda, informing her that they had uncovered her romantic relationship with Kendra's boyfriend, Ricky, which Brenda denied knowing anything about. The detectives then dug deeper by searching both Brenda's and Crystal's cell phones. They discovered that the two women had met for lunch on the day of Kendra's murder, and that Brenda had indeed given Crystal the promised $500 in cash. They also found a photograph on Crystal's phone, where she was holding the money in the shape of a heart, a disturbing image given the gravity of the situation. The detectives were troubled by Crystal's seemingly carefree demeanor in the photo, which contradicted her earlier claims of being disturbed by Kendra's death. During further questioning, Crystal revealed the name of the man who shot Kendra, claiming his name was Lamar. She said she had met Lamar a month earlier at a bar in downtown Dallas, and that he drove a blue Chrysler Sebring. However, the detectives remained skeptical of Crystal's story, suspecting she might be giving a false name to protect the real shooter. They followed up by contacting Lamar and obtained the phone number she had provided, which led them to conduct a deeper investigation. After Crystal's interrogation, she was arrested for being the getaway driver, as she admitted to receiving payment from Brenda. However, there was not enough evidence to arrest Brenda for Kendra's murder at that time. The detectives instead arrested Brenda on an unrelated charge for unpaid traffic tickets, taking her into custody while they continued to investigate. They also searched their criminal records database for any leads on Lamar, but found no connection to the crime. Determined to find the shooter, the detectives enlisted the FBI's help. They tracked down the phone number that Crystal had given them, and after surveillance, they discovered a blue Chrysler Sebring parked at a house linked to the phone number. On September 30th, the FBI agents observed a man, later identified as 31-year-old Christopher Love, leaving the house and getting into the Sebring. They followed him to a nearby parking lot where they apprehended him. During a search of Christopher's vehicle, investigators found a .40 caliber firearm, the same caliber used in Kendra's murder. Ballistic testing confirmed that the gun was a match for the shell casing found at the crime scene, directly linking Christopher to the shooting. When confronted with the evidence, Christopher initially denied shooting Kendra, but admitted to owning the gun. He claimed that Crystal was the one who shot Kendra, but later admitted that Brenda had offered him drugs in exchange for helping with the crime. Christopher also revealed that Brenda had told him Kendra had stolen drugs from her house and was connected to a drug cartel. However, when confronted by detectives, they debunked this claim, revealing that Kendra was a well-respected children's dentist with no ties to drugs or cartels. With the new evidence, Christopher was charged with capital murder and placed in jail. Brenda, on the other hand, was initially held in custody but was eventually released after paying her traffic ticket. As the investigation continued, the authorities focused on gathering additional evidence to strengthen their case against Brenda and the others involved in the tragic murder of Kendra Hatcher. When Brenda was released from custody, she wasted no time in fleeing the country, boarding a bus to the Mexican border in hopes of evading capture. However, the authorities were determined to locate her, and soon issued a public alert, warning that Brenda was wanted for capital murder. They urged her to turn herself in, but Brenda had no intention of doing so. She crossed the border into Mexico, where she remained hidden for several months. The search for Brenda became a joint effort between the Dallas Police Department, the FBI, and local Mexican authorities. Their exhaustive search involved combing through surveillance footage, interviewing potential witnesses, and conducting background checks. 7 months later, in April 2016, their persistence paid off, and Brenda was located in Mexico. However, extraditing Brenda back to the United States proved difficult. A crucial condition had to be met. The United States had to assure Mexico that they would not seek the death penalty. After negotiations, the U.S. agreed, and Brenda was extradited to stand trial for capital murder. The case against Brenda became stronger when Crystal Cortez, who had been involved in the crime, made a plea deal with the prosecution. In exchange for a reduced sentence, Crystal agreed to testify against Brenda. Crystal admitted her role in the murder and was sentenced to 35 years in prison in 2019. During Brenda's trial, Crystal testified that on the day of Kendra's murder, while Brenda was allegedly eating dinner at Chili's for an alibi, Crystal and Christopher Love waited in the parking garage of Kendra's apartment complex. When Kendra drove by, Christopher shot her, took her purse, and ran back to Crystal in the waiting Jeep. Brenda's defense attorney tried to refute Crystal's testimony, claiming that it didn't match Brenda's personality, suggesting that Crystal and Christopher planned the murder on their own after hearing Brenda speak negatively about Kendra. They argued that they targeted Kendra as an easy victim to frame. After deliberations, the jury found Brenda guilty of capital murder, and she was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Meanwhile, Christopher Love, the shooter, was also found guilty of capital murder and was sentenced to death on October 31, 2018. However, Matthew's personal and professional life took a dark turn. In 2013, his law license was suspended due to unpaid dues to the California Bar Association. During his time at Harvard, he had been diagnosed with major depression and signs of mania, which later progressed into a diagnosis of bipolar disorder. His mental health continued to deteriorate, and he developed paranoid delusions, believing that the government was wiretapping his phone and hacking his computer due to his suspected ties with immigrant clients he thought were considered terrorists. In early 2015, Matthew moved into a family cabin in South Lake Tahoe, where he became a recluse, often staying awake for long periods, watching Batman movies, and sinking deeper into paranoia. His psychosis worsened, and he began wearing a wetsuit, creating tools from swim goggles and super soakers, and engaging in increasingly erratic behavior. He began to formulate a plan where he would kidnap evil, wealthy people and demand ransoms for their release, believing his actions were morally justified due to his distorted view of the world. In September 2016, Matthew pleaded guilty to one count of kidnapping and was sentenced to 40 years in prison. He also faced additional state charges, including kidnapping, burglary, robbery, and 2 counts of sexual assault by force. Denise was called to testify in one of Matthew's trials. Her testimony was powerful and intense as she recounted the traumatic experience she had endured. Despite the emotional toll, Denise displayed remarkable composure as she faced her abductor in the courtroom. During her testimony, she addressed the jurors with unwavering confidence, explaining how she had initially hesitated to come forward about the sexual assault, fearing she wouldn't be believed. But Denise pressed on, determined to seek justice for the crimes committed against her, showing immense courage in the face of her attacker. Throughout her testimony, Denise's unwavering determination shone brightly. She described how, despite the intense emotions, she refused to let Matthew see her cry or lose control. Instead, she closed her eyes and mentally pictured being with her boyfriend during the assaults, a form of mental imagery that offered her comfort and strength. This helped her endure the painful memories and continue with her testimony. Matthew Mueller, acting as his own attorney, chose not to cross-examine Denise. He let her testimony stand without attempting to challenge or refute her account. Matthew was initially deemed incompetent to stand trial for state charges, but was later declared mentally fit in November 2022. He pleaded guilty to those charges. In the meantime, the public learned more about Denise's harrowing experience through the release of the documentary American Nightmare on Netflix, which aired on January 17, 2024. Each episode, running 45 minutes, provided a comprehensive look at Denise's assault and abduction. Denise, now a brave survivor, courageously recounted the traumatic events, including the 2 sexual assaults she endured at the hands of her abductor. During the documentary, Denise shared that her abductor, who claimed to be a military veteran, sexually assaulted her twice. She tried to deter him by revealing her own childhood abuse, hoping it would make him stop, but her hopes were dashed when he assaulted her again. He informed her that he had recorded the assaults and would release the footage if she went to the police. This threat left Denise terrified for her safety and the safety of her loved ones, which is why she initially refrained from revealing the assaults to the detectives. In September 2015, Denise and Aaron Quinn filed a lawsuit against the city of Vallejo for false imprisonment, defamation, and emotional distress. They argued that the Vallejo Police Department had severely damaged their reputations through false accusations. According to People magazine, the couple eventually settled with Vallejo officials in 2018 for $2.5 million. Vallejo city representatives admitted that the case had not been handled properly and offered a formal apology to the couple. In 2021, Denise and Aaron released a book about their ordeal, shedding light on their experiences and the challenges they faced after the abduction. The book became a powerful tool for advocating for change and supporting victims. Denise and Aaron also became proud parents to 2 daughters, born in 2020 and 2022. Denise has made it a priority to instill a strong sense of self-worth in her daughters and never allow anyone to dictate their value. Aaron echoed these sentiments, expressing his hope that their daughters would grow up to be as strong and resilient as Denise. Despite the difficulties, Denise and Aaron have shown remarkable strength and resilience. Their story stands as a testament to love and determination in the face of adversity. The documentary also sheds light on Matthew's motives, revealing that his original intent was not to kidnap Denise, but to abduct Aaron's former fiancée, Andrea. However, the reasons behind Matthew's specific targeting of Andrea remain a mystery. In an interview with People magazine, Aaron and Denise shared their frustration over the lack of closure regarding Matthew's motives. Aaron emphasized that, like many other victims and survivors, sometimes definitive answers are elusive. He noted that focusing on what truly matters, like their children and work, is essential for healing. The couple has accepted that they may never fully understand why Matthew targeted them, but they continue to move forward, prioritizing their well-being and the happiness of their family. The story of Denise Huskin's abduction serves as a stark reminder of the consequences of hasty judgments and the importance of thorough investigations. The Vallejo Police Department's initial dismissal of the case as a hoax not only undermined Denise's credibility, but also hindered the investigation. This case highlights the necessity for law enforcement agencies to carefully consider all leads before labeling them as false or fabricated. Doing so ensures that victims receive the attention and support they deserve. Matthew Mueller is currently incarcerated at the Federal Correctional Institution, FCI, in Tucson, Arizona, where he is serving a 31-year state sentence. Matthew Mueller's state and federal sentences will run concurrently, meaning they will be served at the same time, but will not merge into one. According to court records, his expected release date is July 8, 2049. This is when he is anticipated to complete both his state and federal sentences. However, this date could change depending on factors like good behavior, participation in rehabilitation programs, or adjustments in sentencing laws and regulations. As investigators dug deeper into Stephen's background, they uncovered disturbing evidence that would change the course of the investigation. Upon examining his phone, authorities found graphic images and videos that depicted child sexual abuse, leaving even seasoned detectives shaken. This material suggested a troubling pattern of abuse that may have been occurring within the family home. Stephen claimed that the factory reset on his phone was accidental and coincidentally occurred on the same day Melline went missing, but investigators found this timing suspicious, as it erased crucial data that could have shed light on his actions that morning. As law enforcement sifted through the remnants of Stephen's device, they discovered numerous explicit images and videos, many of which appeared to have been taken inside the family home. Alarmingly, some of these files contained clothing and items that matched those belonging to Melline. This revelation painted a horrifying picture of a man who had not only been entrusted with caring for a young girl, but who may also have been her abuser. Consequently, Stephen was named the primary suspect in Melline's disappearance. While he was not initially charged with her abduction, investigators were increasingly convinced that his actions were intertwined with her fate. On March 1, 2024, authorities received a tip that led them to a wooded area off Hickory Tree Road in Ula County. As search teams scoured the terrain, they made a heartbreaking discovery. Melline's body was found concealed beneath a layer of dry grass and hay. She was identified by her distinctive clothing, a green hoodie and blue jeans similar to what she had been wearing when she disappeared. The condition of her body was devastating, with signs of decomposition noted by the medical examiner, who confirmed that Melline's remains showed indications of foul play, further solidifying the belief that she had been murdered. This discovery marked a pivotal moment in the investigation, shifting the focus from searching for a missing girl to recovering the body of a young child. The emotional impact was profound, not only for law enforcement, but for the entire community that had rallied together in hopes of finding Melline alive. During a critical news conference, investigators expressed their growing confidence that Melline had been killed at her home before her body was moved, revealing that video evidence had captured Stephen Stearns in connection with the tragic events surrounding her disappearance. On the morning of February 26th, the same day 13-year-old Melline was reported missing, Stephen Stearns was seen discarding items into a dumpster at the apartment complex around 7:35 a.m. Authorities later discovered Melline's backpack, her school-issued laptop, and a white crock that matched another found in her mother's bedroom in that dumpster. This evidence directly contradicted Stephen's claim that he had dropped Melline off near the school that morning. Investigators asserted that they had evidence indicating Melline was never dropped off at all. They believed she was already dead by the time Stephen was seen driving away. Sheriff Mina emphasized, "We have evidence that shows Stephen Stearns returning to the complex with Melline visible in that vehicle. We believe she was already dead at that time." Investigative reports suggested that Melline was most likely killed in her home, complicating the narrative surrounding her disappearance. The medical examiner officially ruled Melline's death a homicide, determining that she died from strangulation. This conclusion came after her body was discovered in a wooded area on March 1st. On March 2nd, 2024, Stephen Stearns made his first appearance in Ula County Court, opting to be represented solely by his attorney. The judge denied him bond, reflecting the seriousness of the charges he faced. In a significant misstep, the Ula County Sheriff's Office accidentally posted a confidential crime scene photo on social media, depicting clothing consistent with what Melline was believed to have been wearing when she went missing. The Sheriff's Office later issued an apology for the error, acknowledging that the photo should not have been made public. On March 6th, court records revealed that Stephen was accused of sexually abusing Melline for years. Despite his attempts to erase incriminating evidence from his phone, investigators recovered files showing explicit content related to Melline dating back to 2022. This evidence included disturbing images and videos depicting her in compromising situations. Additionally, police interviewed a former acquaintance of Stephen, who noted that he seemed more upset about his bond with Melline than his relationship with her mother. This raised further concerns about the dynamics within the household and Stephen's potential motivations. As the investigation progressed, it became increasingly clear that authorities were building a strong case against Stephen. The combination of video evidence, recovered digital files, and witness testimonies painted a troubling picture of abuse and manipulation that would ultimately lead to serious legal repercussions for him. On the same day, detectives interviewed Stephen's parents, who expressed disapproval of his relationship with Melline's mother, citing concerns over drug use and the negative influence it had on their son. They described a troubling dynamic where both Stephen and Jennifer often slept excessively, exacerbating their mental health issues. Notably, during the interview, Stephen's mother mentioned finding the torso of a sex doll in his bedroom, raising further suspicions about his behavior. Detectives also spoke with two roommates of Jennifer Soto, one of whom reported hearing significant noises coming from the upstairs bedroom, where Stephen and Melline had reportedly been sleeping alone. This raised questions about what might have transpired that night, especially since Jennifer had assured her roommate that Stephen would not harm Melline. After several hearings and investigative developments, on March 12, 2024, the Orange County State Attorney's Office announced that it had filed 60 counts against Stephen Stearns. These charges included 8 counts of sexual battery on a child under 12, 5 counts of sexual battery with a child aged 12 to 18 under familial custodial authority, 7 counts of lewd or lascivious molestation, and 40 counts of unlawful possession of materials depicting sexual performance by a child. The following day, detectives spoke with Melline's best friend, who revealed that Melline had a routine of texting her every morning. However, on the day she went missing, there were no messages from her, raising further alarm. By March 21st, CMI Betty Holland held a news conference to discuss the investigation's progress, describing it as very intricate and stating that everyone close to Melline was considered a suspect until proven otherwise, including Melline's mother, Jennifer Soto. As the investigation continued, the District 9 Medical Examiner's Office announced that the autopsy report for Melline could not be released due to state statutes deeming it confidential. However, audio from 911 calls related to the case was made public, featuring 2 different voices speaking with dispatchers. On April 10th, while in jail, Stephen called his father, expressing remorse, further complicating the narrative surrounding his involvement in Melline's tragic fate. The story then shifts to the tragic case of 13-year-old Melline Soto, who disappeared after celebrating her birthday in Florida on February 26, 2024. As investigators delved deeper into her life, they discovered a web of secrets and troubling dynamics. The last person to see Melline was her mother's boyfriend, Stephen Stearns, who claimed he dropped her off at school that morning. However, inconsistencies in his story soon emerged, leading investigators to suspect foul play. This marked the beginning of a heartbreaking and horrifying journey, as the investigation revealed shocking truths about the family's hidden secrets and the dangers that could be lurking behind closed doors. Melline Soto's tragic disappearance is a haunting tale that began with the innocent excitement of her 13th birthday and ended in heartbreak and mystery. Melline's life, filled with both joy and challenges, took a dark turn that would ultimately shake her family and community to their core. Living in the Venetian Bay Village complex in CMI, Florida, Melline's home was filled with love, but also turmoil. She lived with her mother, Jennifer, and her mother's boyfriend, Stephen Stearns. While Melline and her mother had a close bond, they often clashed due to Jennifer's struggles with mental health, which Meline would sometimes describe as bipolar. Meline, diagnosed with ADHD, often had difficulty in school, which compounded the stress in their home. In the months leading up to her disappearance, Meline's friends noticed a change in her behavior. She seemed more withdrawn, tired, and occasionally tearful, confiding in friends about feeling isolated and misunderstood. Despite these struggles, she also had a good relationship with Stephen, often turning to him for comfort during conflicts with her mother. Yet, there was an unsettling dynamic in their household, and Meline voiced a desire to escape, even making plans with friends to build a house in the woods when she turned 13. What started as an innocent dream took on a more troubling tone after her disappearance. On the morning of February 26, 2024, Meline's day began as it typically would. Jennifer woke up to the sound of Stephen walking the dog, unaware of the dark events unfolding. Stephen, rather than dropping Meline directly at her school, left her at Peace United Methodist Church, located across the street from Hunters Creek Middle School. Surveillance footage later revealed Meline sitting in the church parking lot for several minutes, seemingly lost in thought. She then walked toward the school, but she never arrived. That was the last anyone saw of her. When Stephen later claimed that he had factory reset his phone, it added another layer of suspicion, especially as Meline's absence turned into panic by the afternoon. When Jennifer arrived at Hunters Creek Middle School at 4:30 p.m., eager to pick up her daughter, she was informed that Meline had never attended classes that day. Desperation quickly took over as Jennifer searched nearby locations, including her mother's office, but Meline was nowhere to be found. As investigators delved into Meline's life and family dynamics, they began uncovering disturbing truths and inconsistencies, leading them down a darker path than they had ever imagined. The once trusting environment of a family home turned into a web of secrets that would eventually reveal tragic and horrifying details. What was meant to be a typical school day for Meline ended up marking the beginning of an agonizing journey of heartbreak and betrayal for her family that had factory reset it just before Meline's disappearance, claiming it was to update the device. This odd detail immediately raised suspicion, as investigators wondered why he had not mentioned it earlier, and why he hadn't thought to bring the phone with him when dropping Meline off, especially given that it was such an important tool for communication. The inconsistencies in Stephen's story, along with his odd behavior during questioning, caused investigators to look at him more closely. Jennifer, still in a state of disbelief, began to notice small but troubling details in her boyfriend's actions that had never stood out before. The investigation revealed that Stephen had provided several different accounts of the morning events, each one contradicting the other, further deepening the suspicion surrounding him. The following days saw an intensification in the search for Meline, with law enforcement expanding their efforts to include a wider area. Volunteers continued to assist, distributing flyers and speaking with locals, while detectives combed through surveillance footage from nearby cameras in the hope of finding any new leads. Despite these relentless efforts, no solid evidence emerged, and the search seemed to stall, leaving Meline's family and friends with a growing sense of dread. Jennifer's grief and anxiety were compounded by the uncertainty surrounding Stephen's involvement in Meline's disappearance. With every passing hour, the likelihood of finding her alive grew slimmer, and the situation turned even more desperate. As the search efforts continued, the authorities honed in on Stephen's role in the events leading up to Meline's disappearance. His willingness to submit to questioning, yet his increasingly suspicious actions, only heightened the need for further scrutiny. It was clear that the answers to Meline's whereabouts might lie not only in the places she had been, but also in the people who had been closest to her. On the day that 13-year-old Meline went missing, her guardian, Stephen Stearns, inadvertently performed a factory reset on his phone. This incident raised immediate suspicions among investigators, as the timing seemed too coincidental. As they delved deeper into the case, they discovered that a license plate reader had tracked Stephen's vehicle at various locations throughout the morning, none of which matched his account of dropping Meline off at school. Instead of taking a direct route to Hunter Creek Middle School, his car was seen making unusual turns and detours. Investigators pressed Stephen on these inconsistencies, particularly questioning why he would drop Meline off at a church rather than directly at school, especially with classes starting at 9:30 a.m. His explanations appeared rehearsed and lacked clarity, leading investigators to believe that something was amiss. The tension in the interrogation room grew as they confronted him with their findings, making it clear that he was not only a person of interest, but also the last known individual to see Meline alive. 2 days after Meline's disappearance, the investigation took a shocking turn when law enforcement officials arrested Stephen, but not for Meline's case. He was taken into custody on charges of sex battery and possession of explicit child material. This arrest sent shockwaves through the community, raising serious questions about the man who had been the last person to see Meline alive. After the incident where James had destroyed Amanda's property, she officially filed for divorce and sought a court injunction against him. This injunction included a provision requiring James to stay away from her home. In her filing, Amanda explicitly stated her fears, claiming that if James found out she had a boyfriend, he would kill her. She was acutely aware of the lengths James would go to in order to control her, having witnessed the consequences of his jealous rages firsthand. Feeling threatened by Amanda's newfound independence, James resorted to drastic measures to spy on her. He enlisted the help of his neighbors on South Bellagio Drive, asking them to monitor Amanda's activities and report any suspicious behavior, particularly the presence of men around her house. In August 2015, one of these neighbors, Mike Dickens, sent James a text message with a screenshot of a shirtless man mowing Amanda's lawn. This revelation sent James into a furious rage. He immediately confronted Amanda, demanding to know the identity of the man in the photograph. Amanda reassured him that the man was simply someone she had hired to cut the grass, but James was not convinced. He continued to harass her through text messages, expressing his anger and frustration. James turned to Mike Dickens for support, referring to Amanda in derogatory terms, calling her an evil person, a cheater, and the worst person on the planet. He expressed his determination that she would pay for her perceived infidelity. On August 27th, at 4:41 a.m., James drove to Amanda's house on South Bellagio Drive, but she was not home. Frustrated by her absence, he decided to enter her house. Once inside, he embarked on a destructive rampage, breaking televisions and destroying furniture and walls. As he moved through Amanda's bedroom, he stumbled upon a collection of men's clothing and adult toys that did not belong to him. This discovery sent him into a fit of rage, and he began incessantly calling Amanda to inform her about the intimate items he had found. At 8:34 a.m., he left a voicemail on her phone, calling her disgusting and filled with anger and accusations, further escalating the already tense situation. Just half an hour after leaving the voicemail, James arrived at the St. Johns County Courthouse for a hearing regarding the injunction violation that Amanda had filed against him for a previous incident. During the court hearing, James pleaded no contest to violating the terms of the protective order. Unaware of the chaos he had just caused at Amanda's home, the judge considered James's lack of a criminal history and opted for an alternative sentence instead of jail time. He ordered James to attend anger management classes and placed him on 1 year of unsupervised probation. Dressed in his work clothes, James appeared to accept the judge's decision and left the courthouse. However, his plans took a dark turn. Before leaving, he called Amanda and left another voicemail, this time pleading with her to listen and call him back. He referred to her as baby and expressed a desire for reconciliation. Amanda eventually answered the phone, and they engaged in a 14-minute conversation, the exact content of which remains unknown, but was significant enough to impact James's subsequent actions. Instead of heading to work as planned, James changed course and drove to a gas station, where he filled up his tank and purchased several cans of beer. At approximately 10:11 a.m., he began his journey back to South Bellagio Drive, where Amanda lived. Meanwhile, Amanda returned home to find a devastating scene. James had not only damaged her property, but also caused her immense emotional distress. Alarmed and upset, Amanda sought comfort in the presence of her boyfriend, Lamar, along with 2 friends, Lindy Robbins and Rachel Hendricks. Visibly shaken and in tears, Amanda reached out to the sheriff's department for assistance. However, after careful consideration, she ultimately decided against pursuing immediate help, believing she could handle the situation with the support of her friends and boyfriend. The tension in the air was palpable, and the threat posed by James loomed large over Amanda's life. After the harrowing events unfolded, Amanda chose not to press charges against James, hoping to avoid the consequences of jail time that would separate him from their children. When Amanda denied the officers' assistance, they left her home, unaware that James had already made his way to the vicinity. He parked his vehicle outside and stealthily approached the front door. Inside, Amanda, along with her boyfriend Lamar and friends Lindy and Rachel, were gathered in the living room and kitchen area. Without hesitation, James opened fire on the house, screaming, "Where is he?" Recognizing the imminent danger, Lamar reacted quickly and managed to escape. Security camera footage from the residence captured his desperate dash to a nearby house. In the chaos that ensued, Amanda, Lindy, and Rachel found themselves caught in the crosshairs of James's rage. Bullets pierced through the walls, sending shockwaves of fear throughout the room. As the smoke cleared, the sound of silence engulfed the home. The three women sought refuge in Amanda's bedroom, hiding inside the master bathroom. In a moment of bravery, Amanda decided to call 911, but the situation took a deadly turn when James could be heard outside the bathroom door, demanding Amanda to open it. Amanda desperately pleaded for James to stop, knowing he was searching for Lamar. She understood that revealing Lamar's location could put him in grave danger. Unfortunately, the situation escalated further, and the 911 dispatcher heard a barrage of gunshots and screams. The dispatcher's worst fears were realized when Amanda's cries for help abruptly ceased. James had violently entered the bathroom and opened fire on Amanda, killing her. After shooting Amanda, James turned his attention to the closet where Lindy and Rachel were hiding. Lindy was also on the phone with 911, kneeling in the back of the closet, while Rachel stood in the corner, bracing herself for the worst. In a moment of pure instinct, Rachel took advantage of the situation and snuck behind the door as James walked in. Her heart raced as she heard Lindy cry out in horror, "Oh my God!" just as James raised his firearm and pointed it directly at her head. In an instant, he pulled the trigger, ending Lindy's life. Rachel managed to escape from Amanda's home and sought refuge at a neighbor's house, where she hid in a closet and called 911, expressing her fear that James would eventually find her. Officers arrived swiftly and launched an investigation to piece together the sequence of events that led to Amanda's tragic death. However, their search proved challenging, as James had already fled the scene. Hours after committing the heinous crime, James reached out to his father, confessing that he could no longer handle the situation. He revealed that Amanda had been relentlessly trying to put him in jail, leaving him with no choice but to take drastic measures. James expressed remorse, claiming he had tried his best to resolve the situation peacefully. He then drove to his sister's house, picked up some belongings, and headed north. The hunt for James lasted only a single day before he was apprehended in Virginia. His arrest came after a woman reported a suspicious car with Florida tags driving aggressively and attempting to run her off the road while traveling with 3 small children. Terrified for her safety, she called the authorities, leading to a traffic stop where James was arrested. He was found to be intoxicated, but did not resist arrest. At the police station in Virginia, James was taken into an interrogation room where Detective Samantha English from Florida was present to question him about the murders of Amanda and Lindy. Despite her efforts, James insisted on seeking an attorney, making it difficult for the detective to gather information. Given the horrifying nature of Amanda and Lindy's deaths, the prosecution considered seeking the death penalty against James Coley. To secure a conviction and the death penalty, they needed to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that James had committed premeditated murder. This required demonstrating that he had planned to kill Amanda and Lindy prior to the murders, showcasing that he had formulated a plan and intentionally carried out the killings while disregarding any opportunities to change his mind. The prosecution needed to gather sufficient evidence and build a strong case against James to ensure justice was served for the 2 victims. As James awaited trial for the murder of Amanda at the Duffield Regional Jail, the community mourned the loss of 2 lives and sought answers in the wake of this tragic event. Throughout his incarceration, James maintained contact with his family, and these recorded phone calls provided detectives with valuable insights into his mindset. The recordings revealed the cold-hearted nature of James, as he expressed his intention to keep his son and daughter away from Amanda's family, demonstrating a desire to assert control over their lives. He also displayed a disturbing confidence in securing a manslaughter conviction, discussing the possibility of being released from prison in less than 20 years, despite facing murder charges. An inmate at Duffield Regional Jail, Andrew Cherry, came forward to speak with the prosecution. He claimed to have had conversations with James in which James expressed that Amanda and Lindy got what they deserved when he shot them. According to Andrew, James had no shortage of mean and spiteful remarks about his deceased wife, blaming Amanda for the failure of their marriage and expressing satisfaction in ending her life. This testimony provided crucial insight into James's motive, suggesting that his actions were driven by a deep-rooted desire for revenge rather than a mere act of violence. In the summer of 2018, James found himself on trial. On the first day, he made a shocking admission to the court, stating that he understood the defense's strategy was to save his life. However, he also acknowledged that accepting this defense would mean admitting to discharging a firearm that resulted in the deaths of 2 people. During the trial, James's defense team presented their case to the jury, emphasizing that the focus should be on understanding the why and how behind the tragic events rather than assigning blame. They argued that a man like James, who professed to love his family above all else, could not have committed such acts. The defense claimed that James was under the influence of Ambien at the time of the shooting, urging the jury to consider this as a mitigating factor. They maintained that James was not in his right mind during the incident and lost control of his actions. Rachel Hendrick, who witnessed James's rampage firsthand, was the first to testify. She recounted the horrifying events that unfolded on the evening of the murder. Lamar Dober, Amanda's boyfriend, was the second witness to testify. He expressed his conviction that James was targeting him, prompting him to flee Amanda's house as soon as he heard gunshots. During Lamar's cross-examination, the defense attorney sought to undermine his testimony by asking if he was aware of a secret relationship between James and Amanda. Lamar denied any knowledge of this, but the defense's questioning took a controversial turn when they mentioned Amanda's adult toys. The prosecution was outraged, feeling that the defense was attempting to tarnish Amanda's reputation and paint her as promiscuous. Public sentiment mirrored the prosecution's view, with many taking to social media to criticize the defense attorney for victim-blaming Amanda. In a later interview, the defense attorney claimed that his intention was not to shame Amanda, but to save his client's life. He argued that exploring all aspects of the case, including intimate details of Amanda's life, was necessary for a comprehensive understanding of the situation. However, public opinion remained divided, questioning the defense attorney's tactics and motives. After the prosecution presented their case, it was time for the defense to share their side of the story. A key decision for the defense team was whether James would testify in his own defense. They weighed the potential risks and benefits of having him take the witness stand. On one hand, they believed that James could gain sympathy from the jury by sharing his side of the story and humanizing himself. On the other hand, they recognized that he would face a grueling cross-examination from the prosecution, which could expose inconsistencies in his testimony and raise further questions about his guilt. Ultimately, the defense decided against putting James on the witness stand. This decision was not made lightly, as it deprived them of the opportunity to present their case firsthand. However, they believed that the risks of James testifying outweighed the potential rewards. Instead of calling James as a witness, the defense chose to call Rhonda, James's sister, to testify. Rhonda's testimony played a significant role in the defense's strategy, as they aimed to show that while James was trying to salvage his marriage, Amanda was already seeking a divorce. During her emotional testimony, Rhonda spoke about her role in her brother's divorce, providing the jury with a glimpse into the complexities of the situation and the dynamics of James and Amanda's relationship.